All right, welcome back. So, in this episode, Dr. Baxter Montgomery is going to share his pills to plant story. But first, Dr. Bobby Price is going to introduce him. So, you get to hear all of his professionalism, his accolades, his expertise. Let's jump in.
Can I give him your number? And so the guest that I'm sharing with you today is Dr. Montgomery Baxter. He's a board certified cardiologist, author of The Food Prescription for Better Health. He was named as one of America's top physicians in 2007. He is the founder and medical director of Montgomery Heart and Wellness Health Center. Dr. Baxter primarily uses a raw vegan diet along with other natural approaches to serve heart failure, kidney failure patients, and many more at his clinic. And so without any further ado, I welcome you. This is the direction I'm going.
Wow. Yeah.
And so can you tell the people a little bit about your Pills to Plant story? Because, you know, we all have different roads we travel to get there, but you being a cardiologist working with heart patients, cardiovascular patients and things of that nature, we go through school for a decade and we get indoctrinated. Indoctrinated to the point
exactly
where
right.
you do not want to let go of
That's exactly
this indoctrination.
Right. No, that's exactly right.
So explain your Pills to Plant story.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared your story because that similar background. So mine started back in medical school, in which I know it probably started before then.
Okay.
And when I was a kid, I didn't go to the doctor very much. So I didn't know what my blood pressure was, but it probably was higher than it needed to be.
Yeah.
But in medical school, we used to volunteer to be subjects for different research projects. I remember once I did like a 4-day starvation project, or whatever the case is. We make money. That's how I made money.
Okay.
It was a particular project where they were going to measure our VO2 max, and we had to walk on a treadmill, etc. So they got a resting EKG. They took my resting EKG. It was so abnormal. The researchers could not let me get into the study until they had the cardiologist review it and had to get cardiac clearance just by them reading my EKG.
Wow.
Now, I wasn't a cardiologist then, but in hindsight, in fact, I kept copies of it. That was a very abnormal EKG. And knowing what I know about reading EKGs now, looking back on that EKG, I definitely had coronary disease.
And what age was this?
So that was, probably my second year medical school. So 2024, 25.
Now, I want people to think about
24.
that again.
So,
Me 16, you 24.
yeah, yeah.
Because a lot of young people
That's
think
right.
that they're clear because they're young.
That's
so
right.
it's important.
And the other thing,
I definitely want to pause here. We think that because we're young, we think we got time, we think nothing is affecting us because we don't have any outward symptoms, but things could always be brewing underneath. And I feel like we're having more and more earlier instances of dis-ease showing up in people nowadays. Lots more happening in younger people or happening earlier in life.
too, just to digress slightly, and then you're probably aware of this data, but they did autopsies on American soldiers who had died in the Korean War back in the 50s.
Yep.
Looked at 300 hearts. Roughly a little shy of 80%, about 77, 78% of them had gross plaque in their coronary arteries. The average age was 22.
Yep.
So we have data, and there's also motor vehicle accident data on, I think, 14 to 16-year-olds, and about 65% of them have atherosclerosis. So yes, we know that cardiovascular disease start in your teens and early 20s. So back to my story. So I'm 24 at that time. So I get in the study, I do that study and all that. Now I'm feeling okay. So I don't have symptoms, et cetera, at least, quote unquote, okay.
Yeah.
Fast forward to my honeymoon. I got married when I was 32.
Gotcha.
My then wife and I, we were honeymooning in the Canadian Rockies. I remember we were out walking in the snow.
Yeah.
And I was just having some difficulty breathing. Walking in the snow.
32.
32 years old. Typical anginal symptoms. Now, I knew what it was. I was a cardiology fellow then.
Yeah.
And so wasn't quite the severe tightness, but a little bit of symptoms of fullness in the chest, shortness. So I said, hey, let's I kind of played it off. Let's slow down. Let's do this and the other.
Yeah.
So that was another signal there.
Yeah.
So I'm 32 at that time, so 24 to 32, abnormal EKG, etc. Also around that time, I knew my cholesterol was elevated.
Yep.
My LDL cholesterol was up to 138. This is in my mid to late 30s, maybe 35, 36. I noticed these things. I started going on different diets, this low-calorie diet. There's a physician that had a practice, and I was overweight at that time as well. She had a practice where she did medical bariatrics. So she put you on this 500 calorie a day diet and give you some supplements and so on and so forth. And I lost a ton of weight.
Right.
LDL cholesterol didn't budge.
Nope.
So it wasn't, and I was, again, doing my own research, reading the lay press, et cetera, because I didn't want to take the typical medication. I knew about statins, all of that. Long story short, came across a plant-based diet. For some reason, I took a raw vegan chef course on a weekend. It was a one of these, courses where you become a certified raw vegan chef. It was in Houston.
I did that in South Africa.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, you probably had a better course than I did. But anyway, but one thing happened, though, is I learned a lot about, plant-based nutrition. Also, they shared a lot of resources, including a guy named John Rose, whom I met. He's in Houston. The guy, his background is a CPA, but he was coached people on juice feasts. And so I called him up, and we sat in a Whole Foods for, 6 hours. I mean, the guy had a big backpack. He didn't know everything about food and eating, talk about plant-based diets, and not only plant-based, raw, et cetera, et cetera. So I paid him to do his juice feast. So I did 30 days of raw juice. I'd call him every day. He would, tell me what to do, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And I kid you not, not only did I lose weight, the weight loss was nothing. I just felt like a different human being. I didn't feel my feet touch the ground.
Right.
I was floating, light. My mind was clear, energetic. I mean, it was like I vibrated. There was a different energy about me.
Yep.
And so I said, this is amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the LDL cholesterol just went down to 70, whatever it was. Yeah. So making a long story short, I started off this pattern and said, well, eating a plant-based diet was eating. Now, here's the drawback. I ate healthy plant-based food, but then I would eat vegan junk food.
Yep.
Every year I would do a juice feast detox. And I was, wait, there's something different.
Yeah.
And so over time I said, wait a minute. All vegan food is not equal.
All right. So another peel to plant story. I love the different parts, like just hearing that he started having these conditions very early on. He's in the medical field himself, right? But he doesn't want to do the typical medical path, right? And even that he's working with people with, he wants something different, something more. And he goes on this journey, and he himself, as a trained medical profession, after all the years in school, in practice, he goes on this journey to learn about nutrition. It just says something that doctors are really not taught a lot about nutrition in school. It's not a huge part of their education, nor is it a part of the protocols that they're taught. So he had to go on his own journey. And so he tells the story how he became enlightened. And as we keep going, he'll tell how using it for himself first, he then began to use it in his practice. And again, now that is one of the major tools, the first line of defense that he uses within his practice. All right, let's keep going. Episode 3.